Lincoln here from the Family Training Institute, FAMT, where we provide online mentoring services to promote strong individuals in strong families. Our website is famtfamily.com, and we welcome you to another online course. Today's course is on how to develop reflex forgiveness. We believe that this is very important for families to become strong families and for individuals to be strong individuals, to be able to deal with hurt, to deal with offense. And we do hope that this course is a positive course for your family. Join us. Over the next roughly an hour, we are going to be exploring with you a number of topics. What is forgiveness? Why should we forgive? What does forgiveness do? And we have an interesting approach called RICIMS, RICIMS, in terms of what we should expect when we go through this process of forgiveness. We're also going to be talking a bit about unforgiveness habits, habits that you can see reveal in your life when you're living in unforgiveness. Now we want to also discuss reflex forgiveness as well as managing expectations. And we're also going to be speaking quickly about forgiveness strategies and the response of the offender. We include the last topic very explicitly because while we give a lot of focus on the person that is offended to forgive, we do believe that forgiveness is a part of a strategy to invite the offender into a part of the process to heal the wounds. So we're not just telling you, the person who is experiencing hurt, what you should do, but or suggesting what you should do, but we're also suggesting a response for the offender. The approach to this worldview that the Bible takes is one that is very, very vulgar. It's very expressive. And the Bible starts in the first, of course, we are a Messianic Training Institute. We're a training institute that approaches the development of your family from a biblical perspective in terms of what the Holy Bible says and our understanding of what the Holy Bible says and our understanding of the Holy Bible, which is a very important book in Jewish history. For traditional Jews, the Old Testament, the story is one of chaos. It is one of humanity that is experiencing suffering and pain that is self-induced. We have a tendency, because of what we churchians call sin, to introduce unloving pain in the lives of our loved ones, even worse, our enemies. So this discussion on unforgiveness is a very important one because often when we experience pain and suffering that we know someone has inflicted on us for no good reason, we want to hold that person responsible, hold them accountable for that pain. We don't want to give up anything that is due to us based on them causing pain so in our lives and suffering. So unforgiveness is not a very natural, forgiveness is not a very natural thing for who we see humanity as now. Uh, Unforgiveness speaks to, however, so unforgiveness seems more natural. We want justice, we want revenge, we want punishment for the pain that someone has caused in our lives. So when we're exploring what unforgiveness is, and of course this is not going to be a comprehensive approach, but one to be a kind of starter for you to have this discussion in your family. Unforgiveness speaks to refusing to change our attitude towards an offender. Offender here speaking to someone who has caused unloving pain in your life, and we want now to, the natural response is to punish this person, to take revenge, to defend yourself. Unforgiveness also speaks to maintaining a debt or a penalty against an offender. It also speaks to what we feel is a cowardly way to give up on helping someone to change. We go a little bit more into that in some later discussions. We understand that forgiveness speaks in the Hebrew culture. Hebrew is the dominant language in which the Hebrew Old Testament was written. There's, I believe, some Assyrian and some Syriac. Uh, but the Hebrew culture would view what we say is forgiveness in the English language or the Hellenic language as lifting, bearing, taking away. I believe the term is NASA or NASA. It's mentioned almost 700 times. Well, 659 times, according to the Strong's Hebrew Dictionary. The Greek culture, and Greek culture is important because that's the dominant language for the New Testament of the Bible. New Testament speaking to the the viewpoint of humanity when Jesus of Nazareth is introduced into the story of humanity. The Greek word, I believe that's aphiemi, speaks to leaving something behind, omitting, laying aside something. That's also important. It's mentioned about 156 times in the New Testament. So forgiveness between both the Hebrew culture and the Greek culture is a very important concept, a very important point of view for life. It's mentioned over 800 times, mainly speaking to leaving something behind and supporting someone. So the view of forgiveness is not just I forgive you and I'm done with you. I just want to forget everything about you. But it speaks to also helping the person who is called the offender to change. Now, what does forgiveness do? What should someone expect when we are pursuing forgiveness for pain someone has caused in our life? And we have RICIMS that speaks to 6 elements of what forgiveness does. One, it relinquishes the right to mention the offense. And when we speak about mentioning the offense, we're not saying that you can't talk about it, but we relinquish the right to attach any negative vibration or negative feeling or emotion towards the offense through forgiveness. And this is a very touchy topic. If someone, let's say, had some kind of sexual trauma, when you're talking about extreme pain that people have gone through, how how do we heal and forgive at the same time? It seems as if forgiveness is an almost robotic thing if we're not to mention the offense. And this is something that we understand love does. Love does not keep a record of wrong. So if we love people and we forgive them, we also don't keep an inventory of the wrong things that they have done if we really love them, because forgiveness is an act of love. And we can go a little bit more in detail in this. This is a kind of introductory statement for this course that we could go a little bit more in detail in. I speaks to incurring the sacrifice. So if someone, let's say they owed you $10, you forgive them of the $10 they owe you, and you have given up the right to collect that $10. If it's $10 plus interest, whatever the interest is, you're also sacrificing that interest and penalty. So forgiveness, if you're being forgiven of a debt, let's say you go to a bank and you have a mortgage and something happens and the mortgage person who is issuing the mortgage says we forgive your mortgage in totality, then they are saying that we do not hold you responsible to pay whatever it is on the mortgage for this home, and you are now free and clear. It's similar in a spiritual and emotional sense. When someone has done you wrong and you say I forgive you, you have given up whatever punishment, whatever vengeance, whatever pain, whatever emotion goes along with the pain that they've caused. That's our understanding, at least. C speaking, C is here speaking that you want to offer the offender coaching to change. You want to let them know what they did, how it affected you. We're going a little bit more in detail on this. Now, other thing that forgiveness does is that it imitates Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus on the cross, one of the biggest messages that he taught us when he was crucified, and he said to his Father, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." And that story is such a vulgarly explicit and deeply moving story. It is one that the story of Jesus on the cross, forgiving the people who put him there. Well, not put him, he allowed it to be done, but to people who coordinated this whole process of his assassination. We understand that Jesus of Nazareth calls us when he says, "Follow me." He's not just saying, "Come to heaven and live on cushy pillows," but he's saying that we have to know, if we love people, and we want to follow Jesus, imitate Jesus, then forgiveness is a must. And so the I in RICIMS, well, the second I here speaks to forgiveness. What does it do? It imitates Jesus of Nazareth. The M speaks to, it maintains hope in the quote-unquote offender's repentance. So when we forgive someone, we are holding out an expectation, if you want to call it that the person who is the quote-unquote offender, the person who has caused you unloving pain, can change to become someone better. The S speaks to seeing the offender as a human being, a human peer, someone who is a human. So when we forgive, we see that we also are in no right, in no shape, we're in no moral position to hold the person hostage, because they're just another human just like us. We have offended people. We have hurt our loved ones. We have cheated on our spouse. We have hurt our children. We have dishonored our parents. There is a whole list of things that someone else can hold against us and not forgive us. We forgive for a number of reasons. The biggest reason we forgive is love. And we say that love animates forgiveness. We already mentioned in 1 Corinthians 13, love does not hold a record of wrong, or keeps no record of evil, I believe is another translation. So why forgive? Because when we love, we forgive. Love is compassionate. Love is merciful. And this is one of the big issues, I believe, that this is how God describes himself heavily in the Old Testament: slow to anger, he's merciful, compassionate, etc. So the one of the reasons we forgive is that's a part of the nature of God, to be forgiving, and it's a part of how we show the love of God, the love of Jesus. We also forgive because this is a command from Jesus. He explicitly tells us to forgive those who wrong us. That's a part of how you see that someone is a child of God, out of their willingness to forgive. We also forgive because forgiveness releases heaven. Christ speaks to a doctrine of communal or corporate forgiveness. Forgiveness as a church body, where if it is that we have unforgiveness as a people, that actually restricts heaven from our lives. And people talk about the thing where two or three are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of you. But not understanding that he is really speaking, or not appreciating, let me not say understanding, not fully appreciating that Jesus is calling us as a body of people who believe in him. That could also not just mean a church, but your individual family units. That if we are unforgiving, let's say someone hurts a family member and someone did something that causes material pain. Let's say your landlord is forcing your eviction. Let's say someone scratched your car and did not leave a note at the mall or something. And as a family, you said we collectively don't forgive someone. You can extrapolate this to slavery, to a whole range of things that are very politically, culturally charged issues. And for communities that say, and I've heard pastors say from the pulpit, a black pastor, and I heard a whole range of black pastors say that it is okay for black or African Americans, whatever term you use, to live in a state of unforgiveness towards slave masters who introduce a certain level of brutality in our history. And what I understand when we say forgiveness releases heaven is that when we are unforgiving as, let's say, people who have experienced this kind of slavery, let's say if Hebrew descendants are unforgiving of the Holocaust, etc., our understanding is that the kingdom of heaven is restricted from those communities to the extent that they are unforgiving. The next reason we forgive, it's a principle of salvation. If you don't forgive, you will not be forgiven. We're not saying that we forgive out of a selfish reason to be saved, but one of the reasons we forgive is that it is a revelation of our own salvation. When we see that we have been forgiven for some of us much worse things than we are holding people accountable for, then we understand we have no moral credibility to be unforgiving. And in fact, we can forfeit our own salvation when we do that, when we live in unforgiveness. Peacemakers naturally forgive, and that is an important element why you want to be a peacemaker, because those are the children of God. It is in the DNA of someone who represents God to be a peacemaker, to be someone who smooths out differences rather than holds people in unforgiveness. Forgiveness also demonstrates the purity of our heart. When you have a pure heart, it is almost impossible to hold someone in unforgiveness. I'll leave that there. Christ also blesses the merciful. So that's another very big reason why we forgive. There are some very interesting habits or practices that go along with unforgiveness. So, generally, what we find, people don't forgive because of a number of reasons. One, we call this MACAPP, MACAP, unforgiveness habits, which are MACAP is to try to help you to hold that memory trace of these six elements. M here stands for muteness. Here, the person who is offended does not tell the quote unquote offender, does not communicate with the offender, person causing the harm, the pain or what they have done. So in muteness, there is no discussion that takes place about the offense, and if there is no discussion of the offense, often it limits the options for forgiveness. The A here speaks to avoidance, and the again person who has been hurt insists on avoiding the cost of the sacrifice involved in forgiveness. To this person, the pain that they feel from the hurt is too much for them. They feel that is too much pain for them to let go. The cost of the forgiveness is seen as too high because of normally because of the pain that this person has felt. They put a lot of more value on the pain that they feel than on the forgiveness. The C speaks to correction. Here, the offended person wants to use unforgiveness to correct the offender by imposing the penalty or the consequence of the offense. The objective behind that is that the person should be, if that person treasures the relationship they have with the offended person, they will want to change, and the cost of the unforgiveness will cause them to change. However, the Hebrew Mosaic history and the law doesn't show that this works. Even for when God imposes exile on the Hebrews, for example, or there is death, People will go as far as even losing children and still not change. The book of Numbers shows that very Numbers, Judges shows how stubborn people are even in the face of facing the penalty for their actions. The A here, the other A here speaks to amnesia. Here, people engage in unforgiveness because they forget their own history of forgiveness. Where people have been forgiven by others, they forget that they also were offenders. Sometimes a person who has been offended today was an offender yesterday and possibly will be an offender tomorrow. Or history has shown as humans that we are in no scarcity of causing pain. We have a very easy knack of causing pain with each other, especially in our own families, amongst people that we call loved ones. So with the other A here is amnesia, where we don't forgive others because we forget our own history of forgiveness. We have been forgiven for being offenders, and we normally forget that and go ahead and hold somebody hostage to the pain that they have caused us or someone close to us. Another reason why people don't forgive is pride. The the person who is offended often can deem the offender unworthy of their forgiveness. The cost of forgiveness is seen as too high for that particular person. We go into a little more detail. And the last, well, for us here, there may be other reasons. People study this thing in a more extensive way. But for this course, the last reason for unforgiveness that we explore is punishment. People here deliberately want to inflict pain back on the quote unquote offender. They don't care whether the person changes or not. The offended person was hurt, and they simply want the offender to feel pain, at least similar to the pain that they made us feel when they offended us. For us to move from pain to forgiveness, we call this reflex forgiveness, is required. And we want to start off by doing what we call 3 R's. The starting point is to respect the quote unquote offender. We want to take labels off of people and see people as people. When you see someone as an offender, it's hard to really forgive them because now they are less human than you have put a label that transforms them from a regular human. We want to see this person, even though they have caused you pain. It may have been sexual trauma, it may have been that they deserted you as a parent, they were harsh on the job, they fired you unfairly, whatever it has been. Yes, that causes pain, but this person is still a human. Even if they weren't being very human at the time, they are created with the potential to bear in our messianic lingua the image of God, or to be someone who can represent God through Jesus Christ in our mental frame or spiritual framework. So we want to respect the offender. This is a human being. They may not be they may not be being they may not be being they are not being human. Sorry. They are not being very human at this time, or fully human at this time when they hurt you. But we don't have to resort to this. We don't have to resort to dehumanizing them in the same way they dehumanize themselves by causing us pain. So first R, respect the offender. Second R, we want to relieve the offender. Seeing that they're human, we also have committed offense. We want to relieve the offender of the cost of the pain and hurt that they have caused us. And we also want to see the offender change. We don't just want to forgive them and expose either us or others to more pain. We want to see a transformation in this painful and hurtful behavior. So we essentially want to move from looking at unforgiveness as a default to just protect ourselves and ball up or go into a shell, but we also now want to move to forgiveness, helping the person bear the burden, helping the person to relieve the burden from off of them, off this painful, hurtful action. We want that to be a new default that we practice over time. Often pain is caused by expectations that are not effectively managed or managed in the best way. So, a part of this forgiveness strategy in this course is that we want to help persons to manage offense, manage expectations better, manage offense by managing their expectations of persons. We're not going to say that this is going to remove pain and offense, but it helps you to forgive even better, to have a better approach at forgiveness, rather than lashing out and looking for a way to get back at the quote unquote offender. We say six things. We can look at how equipped is this person to meet our expectations. So, for example, if we're talking about a boss, a professional, a boss, let's say, that is being very mean, this boss may be a damaged person. They come on the job, they're not going to be transformed from, let's say, someone who was abused as a child, who had a harsh childhood coming up, or whatever issue they're going through. They may have mental issues. They just may not be persons who are equipped enough to handle the expectations that you have of them. The next thing we want to do in managing offense is to also look at informing persons of our expectations of them. You're married and you don't tell your husband that you expect him to keep the toilet clean. He may be coming from a background where he he does not flush the toilet. He might just be absent-minded, and he's not seeing that as anything inconsiderate. Someone may have picked up after him consistently throughout his life, a grandmother, some other family member, and he is now expecting you to do the same thing, to flush the toilet after him, to move his shoe, whatever it is. So if you don't, one way of managing offense is to let the person know, inform persons of your expectations of them. We also want to support this person, support each other in meeting the expectations that you inform them about. If the person is not equipped to meet your expectations, even if you inform them, it's not going to make a difference because they're still not equipped. This person now, if it is that the person leaves their shoe at the door all the time and the shoe stinks, you may have to put some tinactin at the door, or you may have to have an air freshener at the door, or something like that. Have some kind of practical support that you provide to help this person to meet your expectations. We also want to inspect and watch to see whether the expectation is being met, and you want to reward persons who are doing their best or making some steps to meet your expectations, and you may also want to have a reckoning with persons who don't. In this framework, you can use forgiveness as an incentive for persons who are making an effort to actually meet your expectations. Now, here we present a number of strategies to help you to get over or address these habits, the MACAP habits that we expressed earlier. For example, if you're someone who has the issue of muteness, where you do not communicate when you're offended to the quote unquote offender, a lot of times this comes from persons who are overwhelmed with emotions. There may be so much emotional attachment to the pain, or there may be so much emotional attachment to the person causing the pain. Maybe the person is a mom, a dad, a pastor, some authority figure, someone normally in your home, a loved one, comes with so much emotional attachment. Persons will clam up. Some persons will clam up, especially if you are more introverted. You will have a hard time stating the offense. What we suggest and what we can help you to do here at famtofamily.com is to have working sessions where you practice stating facts over feelings. We're not telling you to become robotic or stoic, but we're saying often if someone stepped on your toe, you don't need to go into the fact that, hey, this is the fourth time you're stepping on my toe, and I feel that you saw my toe there and you deliberately did this, and I feel, and when you do that, you're attaching a lot of emotions, and that's important for you. Your emotions are important for you, but it can cloud what you're trying to communicate in this present moment. You may just want to state, "Hey, you're on my foot. You're on my foot. Could you move? That's causing pain. Could you move? Please stop doing that. That's hurting me." The fact is, the person is stepping on your foot. You're stepping on my foot. That's hurtful. That's hurtful, and I would love for you to stop doing that. And you just state the fact, or the person went into, you're trying to get two persons that are jockeying for parking spot. One person goes into the parking spot before the next person. You might want to say, "Hey, you went into the spot before me. I was waiting for this spot. Did you see me?" Something like that, rather than just stay, "Hey, you inconsiderate," whatever expletive you want to use there. Hopefully, you're not using an expletive. Um, but again, that's the point. Practice stating facts over feelings. We can help with that. Avoidance. For if you're someone who avoids forgiveness because the cost is too high for you, and you prefer to just be unforgiving because the pain you feel is too much, the practice we suggest here is to not feel entitled to any treatment at all. When you have an expectation, these expectations, especially if they're high expectations, they tend to make it harder for you to forgive, to incur the cost of forgiveness. Remember, forgiveness is costly. If this man did something bad to you in your marriage, he cheated on you, and this caused you a lot of pain, you want to, if you're going to forgive him so you can move on with your life, you might have an expectation that, hey, he was a husband, he should not. And once you start with should, you're into the world of ideals, and yes, people should operate a certain way. But when you do that, when you hold persons to an ideal, it can make it harder for you to forgive them. So we want to deflate the cost of forgiveness by removing the ideal expectation, and that can often make it easier for you to forgive. If you're using correction as your unforgiveness to correct the quote unquote offender, this is one thing where some people argue that this is a good thing. We have made the point earlier that we have not even seen this as a successful strategy for even God when he does this with the Hebrews. The Old Testament ends essentially, if you look at the Bible, with Malachi, a call to repentance. The people still have not repented. They have been exiled from Canaan, and they continue to not turn to the Lord, and they are now governed by the Greco-Roman Empire. Correction does not seem to cause people, forgiveness does not seem to cause people to change. When you're unforgiveness doesn't seem to cause change in people's lives. So for dealing with the issue of correction, a strategy we suggest is to practice selfless reasons for correction. If you want someone to be corrected for an action, it might not be because of the hurt they cause you. They may be going on to cause hurt and pain to other people as well. So deflate this issue of correction just because of the pain they have caused you, and look at this person. This person is going to cause pain to more people in the future, and we can now remove the issue from just being one of your own personal pain to looking at the pain of the community in general and trying to get more persons involved and looking at strategies to help this person to see that, hey, you're not just hurting me here, you're hurting other people that might even be more important to you than me. Here we have additional forgiveness strategies for the remaining 3 Macap habits. We are not going to spend a lot of time going through each of them. We have what we call a light raft series booklet that accompanies, well, this PowerPoint, an online presentation actually accompanies a light raft, a larger, more in-depth light raft booklet that can be made available to you. we can go through this in a little more detail there. But we have some additional strategies. If you're someone that is troubled with amnesia, unforgiveness, where you forget that you were also an offender, we encourage you to practice recalling your past forgiveness stories when you also cheated on your wife. So now, even though your partner now in your current marriage, let's say you're divorced and remarried, you cheated on your ex-wife. That's why you're divorced. You know, married someone, she cheated on you, and let's say that your ex-wife has forgiven you, but she still, for whatever other reasons, you guys chose to separate. No, you're holding your wife hostage to something she has done. So we want you to look back at stories of your own past when someone forgave you and use that as a motivating factor. It doesn't, to be fair, pain is pain. And even in the face of your own history of being forgiven by someone else, persons can still say, you know what, I'm still feeling this pain, and it might not even be amnesia. It may be deliberate. It might be now punitive. But at the end of the day, we encourage you to remember. There's a story in the Bible of a man who was forgiven of a king for, let's say, $10 million that he owed the king, and then he is released out of prison, and the man owes him 10 cents. And instead of him forgiving the man, he accosts the man, and he was really brutal towards this man for a minuscule amount when the king forgave him of so much more. And I believe that Jesus wants us to have a similar approach to forgiving each other. For pride and punishment, these are some. We also have some strategies here. In the interest of time, we're going to move forward. Now, this is a big area of this online course. We have been very focused on the response of the offendee, the person who has felt the pain of the offense. Now, because of what we think, the feedback we've gotten, and our own views of this, we want to say, what is the offender's responsibility in all of this? And we suggest ARC as an acronym that helps us to see what we expect from the person causing the pain. One, we expect this person to accept forgiveness, to acknowledge the person that has been offended, that is relieving the offense, and to acknowledge that they cause pain. So if, for example, you're not seeing your dad who was missing from your life and you're now an adult, there's a very popular motivational speaker who spoke about his dad trying to get back into his life as an adult. No, and he did not acknowledge the fact that he was missing from this person's life for almost his entire life. Of course, that is something that is very difficult. Or persons don't even acknowledge the offense. Persons will be like, "Oh, I didn't know I was causing you so much pain. Oh, it's so long ago. You still remember that?" Yes, the person remembers. So one, we expect the offender to acknowledge, yes, I did cause this pain, and to acknowledge the person, not just the pain, but I acknowledge you, because the pain is not just floating around in the air. The pain is attached to a human being that has that, and that pain has caused significant trauma often to this person. So we expect the offender to acknowledge the person that's relieving them of the offense. Yes, I know that I was not in your life for 20 years. I recognize that this has caused you a lot of pain, and I know that you're making a significant step to mend our relationship or to move on with your own life by forgiving me. I really appreciate this, and then we can go down the line. The person you also want to see that the person regrets the offense. It's not just that the person acknowledges the offense, but there's no remorse. That is probably even worse, that the person says, "Yeah, I did it and I don't care." But if you would, this is again ideally what you would want to see the offender do. If we are offenders, again, we're not just talking about forgiveness for from the standpoint of the offendee, but if we're persons causing pain, how should we respond when someone wants to forgive us? We should regret the offense. Again, this is a should, But we also want to look at this as a can. It's possible that, especially if you are a believer in Jesus of Nazareth, and to know that you cause another human pain, you don't want to do that. You don't want to be held responsible for pain that you have caused persons. And the third and the biggest thing is to change. After all of this, the most, as we say here at Family to Family, change is the biggest apology. It makes no sense we verbally apologize and go back and commit more pain. We're not in a fairy tale world with forgiveness. There are some very, very strong case studies of forgiveness. Forgiveness is a core value, what we say kingdom value, meaning here the kingdom of God for earth. When we talk about the kingdom of God, the kingdom of the Creator, as a messianic believer here, we at Family to Family, our messianic manliness movement, we understand that forgiveness is a core reflection of Jesus and the kingdom of heaven, which is the this high kingdom from where he is from, the kingdom that is above dirt. Yes, we are humans and we are on earth, but the our creation story is one that we, even though we are of dirt, we are expected to have an elevated consciousness. That consciousness is a consciousness of love. We're not just like another panther or a chimpanzee. We're not the fifth ape. We are persons who, with the consciousness we have, are able to make deliberate choices that show the love of God. Forgiveness, as you said, one core reason for forgiveness is love. And forgiveness is a core kingdom value because it is an expression of love. And we see two examples here. Eva Kors, I believe was her last name. She was I don't think she's still alive. She is a Holocaust survivor, or was a Holocaust survivor. And the gentleman in the picture is a man called they called him the Auschwitz bookkeeper. And he is someone who was a part of the Nazi regime in Germany, I believe. So this woman, you see them hugging, she forgave the Auschwitz bookkeeper, as he is called. I don't want to give him that label. And she hugged him, and that is something that is tremendously powerful. This other picture that you see here, Mary Johnson, this young man, O'Shea, Israel, was convicted of killing her son, Mary Johnson's son. She forgave him, and I believe she has now treated him as her own son. You see that picture showing again forgiveness is such a powerful tool. And in our light draft on reflex forgiveness, MACAP, addressing MACAP habits, we go into a little more detail there in terms of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee in South Africa that was headed by Bishop Desmond Tutu, a very, very powerful case study of forgiveness. We're making the point here that forgiveness is not theoretical. Other human beings like us, many of us will never go through the pain of what Eva Kors went through, or what Mary Johnson went through, to lose a son violently. And the pain that we're not belittling your pain, but, and again, pain is pain, so I probably was, and I apologize. But however, we're saying that it is possible in the face of significant pain to exhibit forgiveness and to actively support the offender, quote unquote, to change. So we want to close off this quick overview of this course on reflex forgiveness with an evaluation. Now, with all the information, you can of course skip back and forth, well, back to previous slides, and we ask three questions. What drives your unforgiveness? At whatever age, we know this world has a glut of pain, a glut of heartache and trauma and tragedy. From the smallest to the oldest, we have experienced and caused pain. So for us, we want you to reflect, evaluate your own self. What drives your unforgiveness? Is it muteness? Is it avoidance? Is it correction? Is it amnesia, pride, or punitive or punishment? Well, and it might be a combination of those. Next, what specific strategies will you apply to address your unforgiveness? Now, we are assuming that you want to address your unforgiveness. If you don't want to address your unforgiveness, then we'll have a different discussion with you. But on the assumption that you do want to address unforgiveness, we gave some suggestions as to strategies that you could use. So we would want you to look at a group of strategies that you can use to address your unforgiveness. And then we want you to decide on a time, an emergency time of action, an ETA. When will you actually embark on these strategies? Use yourself as an experiment, as a guinea pig, and make, or as a lab experiment. Some people don't like the term guinea pig. Use yourself as a lab rat and go through this process. Practice with someone else if it's too much for you to directly dive into doing this with the person that has caused the offense. Thank you for coming to the end of this online course on forgiveness. We are grateful for your attention. Our contact details is as below. My name is Lincoln Price, Director at FAMT, and you can reach me at connect@famtifamily.com. Our website is famtifamily, F-A-M-T-I, family.com, where you can reach us there. We also have a podcast on Anchor called Turn Number 2 Burn, and you could look at some of our programs there, some of the podcast information there as well. We thank you for your time and your attention. And this is such a powerful and liberating topic of forgiveness. Forgiveness, as you saw on the slide earlier with Nelson Mandela's quote, forgiveness is something that can really remove you from a jail cell in your own mind, where you hold yourself, you enslave yourself to your own pain. And forgiveness is a part of a liberating strategy for you to be free from pain that you have experienced. So we do hope that you will actually execute on all of this if you want your life to be improved and you to be a strong individual in a strong family. So why rob God in this world of you and your family? And until next time, be nuclear.